Don't worry, folks. There's still time to pick a college champion and get the best odds in the country. Do some prop swapping with us. Go to PropSwap.com, where America buys and sells sports bets.
And we are back. Another edition of Kevin's Corner. Very fittingly, as we await the left side of the bracket tonight over at Lucas Oil Stadium to get to the Final Four here in Indy. It's also the start of Major League Baseball season this week, and a fellow Reds fan is actually in studio with me today. Chris Presley feeling a little bit under the weather, so we had to go to the bullpen in a very emergency situation. But Eddie Garrison, I'm trying to think of a great Reds closer, like Danny Graves, or I guess Aroldis Chapman would probably be fitting. But Eddie Garrison is going to be producing this edition of Kevin's Corner. Eddie, I appreciate it, brother.
Thanks for having me.
It'll be fun. We'll get into, about 2.5 weeks into free agency. We'll talk a little bit of that. T.Y. Hilton made some news with Pat McAfee late last week as well, as we await to hear from T.Y. officially and re-signing with the Colts. We'll get into those topics, and then, as always, Twitter questions. Really, when we come back in April, folks, we're going to hit the draft hard. I know you guys have been wanting it. We are less than a month away from the NFL draft, which is pretty remarkable. But April 29th is the start of that. We should tease a Beers with Bowen, folks. I believe that turned into let's take a shot at Buffalo Trace last time we did it. So Chris Presley, I don't know. Maybe he's under the weather. Maybe he's feeling side effects from a tattoo that he was supposed to be getting because the Buffalo Bills beat the Colts. But we'll figure that out. But, yeah, we'll have a Beers with Bowen the night before the draft, April 28th. That's at 8 p.m. Stay tuned for some more details. Hopefully some prizes we'll give away. But, yeah, mark your calendars there. It'll be virtual, as always, on YouTube. And then hopefully when we get really back into the start of the regular season, we can do that in person again. I know it's been something that I've missed and would love for you guys to be able to come out and we all meet at a little downtown establishment and throw back a couple cold ones and talk a little Colts football. So that's the lineup for today. Yeah, I think that's pretty much covers everything. We had the emergency podcast for T.Y. Hilton last week that came very fittingly just a few hours after Chris and I recorded, which I think we told you that on the podcast. Just frustrated me, but whatever. Let's start here, Eddie. We're about 2 weeks into free agency. Your thoughts so far on what the Colts have done? Did you expect a little bit more action, kind of status quo for Chris Ballard? What are your thoughts?
I thought this would be kind of how Chris Ballard operates. I mean, it's another season. He doesn't spend money. The one area I wish he did go out and spend money, obviously, is that defensive end or edge rush.
Right.
Biggest need for the team. And we look at the Super Bowl. Tampa Bay won because of their edge rush at getting at Patrick Mahomes, making him uncomfortable in the pocket, and they haven't addressed that at all. No. I guess they're relying on Ben Banigou and Kamoko Toure to develop.
Yeah, boy, I'd sleep better at night if I weren't relying on them atop my depth chart. You know, I still think there is something inside of those two, Kamoko Toure more so than Ben Banigou, to be honest with you. At times I probably wish that Kamoko worked to the level of Ben Banigou, or maybe carried himself in that manner, but that would be my biggest disappointment as well 2 weeks into it. You know, I was looking back at my free agency blueprint that I laid out on the podcast early March, and for the most part, there are a lot of kind of boxes that I shouldn't say we, I guess Chris Ballard has checked. You know, when I laid out that blueprint, I had 4 re-signings. T.Y. Hilton, Marlon Mack, so check. T.J. Carey was on there. We'll see what happens with him still in the open market. Al-Qadim Muhammad was also on that list. Now, I know a lot of people have kind of made the comparison like, oh, Isaac Rochelle is going to be Al-Qadim Muhammad. I don't know. Isaac Rochelle strikes me as a little bit thicker than Al-Qadim Muhammad, and I asked Rochelle last week when we were talking to him, and boy, you talk about just stereotypical Notre Dame human, just great personality and just great head on his shoulders and all those things. That's Isaac Rochelle. But Rochelle mentioned it of like, you know, I play outside on the early downs with the Chargers and kind of slid inside on third down. That's not really what Muhammad has done. So I do think that re-signing would still make some sense. So that's kind of, I guess, how the re-signings have been, pretty similar. The reason that I called Xavier Rhodes the most important free agent the Colts had entering this offseason, I just didn't think he would return because I thought he'd get bigger money elsewhere, Eddie. But I honestly should have thought more along the lines of remember his value here and compare that value to predominantly the rest of the NFL, which is playing more man coverage. And by that, I mean this. His final season in Minnesota, when they had him in some more man situations, he clearly struggled, and they cut him. Well, now he comes to Indy, and they play him in a lot more zone, and he played at a much higher level. So that's where I should have, kind of cross-referenced some things there and been a little bit more, accurate in my gauge on his market. But clearly, when you look at the contract value, boy, that seems like a steal. But again, the Colts are projecting him in a zone, whereas other teams are going to say, oh, that's the contract value you're going to give him in zone. Well, we feel like in man, he's not worth that to our system.
Yeah, you also have to think about it from his perspective, too. I mean, how many other teams were interested in him? And out of those interested teams, if they're offering, $1, $2 in terms of million more, but he's playing more man, does he go do that for the money, or does he come back to Indy to have success?
Yeah.
Where he can earn up to that $1 million, $2 million extra by being a Pro Bowl player. He had the caliber last year to be a Pro Bowl.
Correct.
I thought he was snubbed, but
yeah,
that's just my opinion on it.
No. I think that's a really good point. So I guess, when I looked at the outside, the building free agent signings, I thought obviously high-end edge rusher. That hasn't been checked. Then I thought mid-level wideout, mid-level corner. To me, Rhodes kind of takes care of the mid-level corner. I still think TJ Carey would be someone to bring back given his versatility in the slot and outside. But mid-level wideout to me, and I also will group in tight end here. To me, it's like a mid-level pass catcher maybe is how I probably should have assigned that. Certainly T.Y. is T.Y., and we'll get into a little bit more on him here in just a second. But I still think a mid-level pass catcher. Tight end, I don't love the tight ends still out there on the market. I kind of go towards the draft with that position. So really, when you look back at that blueprint, it's very similar to what the Colts have done. It's just that high-level edge is what you're missing, and that's a big, big miss.
I think another thing to look at, too, maybe depth at linebacker.
Yeah, I know. People have asked about that, and I do want to clear up. Guys, Anthony Walker had a decision to make on his own. Anthony Walker didn't want to come back here and really ride the bench because you don't play three linebackers that much. Yeah, I mean, that could be an option. I tend to think Chris Ballard is drafted well at that spot, so you just throw a 6th or 7th round pick there and you move on. I do find it interesting that how many free agent signings have the Colts had so far? I mean, Mack, Hilton, Sam Tevy, Julian Davenport, Rochelle, Rhodes. That's 6.
I think that's it.
Those 6, all one-year deals. I think that's something to note as well. And different ages, Obviously, Tevy, Davenport, Mack, much younger. Rochelle, even much younger. Rhodes and Hilton, a little bit older. So that's something that I feel like it's a little bit of pandemic-related. It's certainly a little bit of Chris Ballard feeling like he needs to get these contracts done and off the books before those extensions do come. But I'll say this, Eddie, as we sit here and the bulk of free agency is over, and I still expect the Colts to make another move or two. Let me be clear. I think Justin Houston, honestly, could be a re-signing at this point when you look at the edge group. You need instant impact from those 2 draft picks. And I say 2 because those are the first, second rounders. You don't draft again to the 4th round. I know a lot of people have talked about trading back. We'll see how that plays out. But, man, you need it, because right now, obviously, left tackle is up in the air. Edge rusher is very much up in the air as well. You could use another wideout. You could potentially use another corner. You could use a tight end. So to me, the day one impact has got to come with those couple draft picks.
I also think they should address the edge rush before the draft, because if they don't during the draft, then the price tag for those edge rushers may go up because they could hold out. It's like, I know you need me.
That's a good point.
So you got to meet me in the middle here.
Yeah. it's a little bit of leverage for those guys if you do wait. It's kind of funny how all that plays out. I remember was it Dontrell Inman? Yeah, Dontrell Inman a few years ago, the Colts said, here's your contract. You can have it. If we draft a wideout, that contract is no longer there. Inman said, I'll wait. They draft Paris Campbell. Inman ends up, I think, signing with the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken. Or I don't know, maybe he went to Washington. I don't know. I feel like Inman's
somewhere where he was cut, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So that is kind of that's kind of the background that you get on this third, fourth wave of free agency, where there are some older veterans out there. Some of them are either like, oh, I'm good. I'll wait till training camp. I'll find a spot where there's an injury, and now all of a sudden you really need me somewhere like that. Let's get into a little bit of the T.Y. Hilton, Pat McAfee stuff. I know you listened to that, Eddie, as well. I thought some just incredibly candid comments from Hilton and of course, Pat doing what he does. And obviously those two have a great, great relationship. Clearly, the big thing that stands out to, I think, a lot of people is the fact that, boy, T.Y. Hilton was close to signing with the Baltimore Ravens. And, T.Y. said to Pat, that eye emoji tweet that he had last Thursday, that was not in reference to, I'm coming back to the Colts. That was in reference to, oh, shit, I think I'm going to the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
And that was certainly interesting. And T.Y., just some great detail, and pretty much at noon, he told himself by 3 o'clock he wanted to sign somewhere. He's exchanging text with Chris Ballard all throughout noon on to, into the 2 o'clock hour. Gets on the phone with Chris Ballard, and basically Ballard gives him a number, and T.Y. is like, all right, that's the number. I think I'm going to have to go elsewhere. And he hangs up, and then he says very shortly thereafter, Jim Irsay gets on the horn with them, and Jimmy from the Colts makes sure that that old T.Y. Hilton isn't coming off the side of Lucas Oil Stadium anytime soon.
I thought that was the most open we've ever seen T.Y. Hilton, too, in terms of an interview.
Yeah, it is. T.Y. doesn't say a lot. Sometimes he'll say a lot in the short amount of time, but, nothing to that degree. And obviously Pat, I think he felt extremely comfortable with Pat there. So I don't know about you, Eddie. Certainly we're curious, like, what was Chris Ballard offering?
Mm-hmm.
I have no issue in Jim Irsay coming in at the 11th hour and giving T.Y. a sweetener, whatever you want to call it. It's a 1-year contract. You have all this cap space. You're not going to spend it all. It's not like the Colts are waiting for some gold prize that, that guy needs $15 million a year, $20 million a year. No. And again, 1 year. So is T.Y. worth, in a vacuum, is T.Y. Hilton worth 1 year, $10 million, 8 guaranteed?
I think his level of play is worth that 6-7, and that extra 2 to 3 is for his leadership presence for those younger wide receivers.
I'm with you there. And honestly, I would put $1 million or $2 million just from the standpoint of I sleep better, / that position has underwhelmed so much over the last 7 or 8 years. It almost covers my ass. And again, this is not all on Chris Ballard because Ryan Grigson had some mistakes at that position too. But it almost just covers my ass just in case. Mm-hmm. Like, what if Paris Campbell doesn't stay healthy? What if Michael Pittman doesn't take the jump that we all expect him to take? Then it's like, all right, a little bit of a steadying force. Is T.Y. past his prime? Sure. Is he the same receiver we saw in 2016? No, he's not that same guy. But I think with this quarterback, and I said it on the emergency podcast last week, and for those that missed it, I kind of made the baseball analogy. I don't think you run him out there every 5 days and he gives you 7 innings anymore, but I think he can come out of the bullpen and get you out of a jam. And when this team needed it the most last season, the 2 Houston games sandwiched around that Vegas game, T.Y. Hilton stepped up. And I don't think we can lose sight of that your biggest stretch of the season, Pittman had that nice kind of November, but then he kind of tapered off a little bit. And obviously, Pittman was huge in the playoff game. But to get there, to get to the postseason, T.Y. made some big plays for you.
Imagine some of the numbers he would have put up, though, if he doesn't have the usual drops early in the year.
Right. And I feel like that's so out of character for him. Mm-hmm. Again, I've said this so often with Chris, I don't look at him and be like, that's Reggie Wayne after the ACL.
I don't either.
Or that's Andre Johnson, where I'd love to stop watch the 40 and see what he's really running. At this point, it's not that. I don't look at it and just be like, dude, that's Greg Maddux and not, whatever, Clayton Kershaw. I know Kershaw doesn't have a flamethrower for a fastball, but you know what I'm getting at. He and I'm sure this probably scares some Colts fans. He said he talked to Luck, during the process, and he said, man, Luck's so happy he made me want to retire, which obviously shows you where Andrew is at, and obviously those two relationships there. But Reggie Wayne, just a huge sounding board for T.Y. And I guess that's another part of this, Eddie, too, is like, as I bounce around on my chair over here, in this franchise, in that organization, there's been a passing of the torch at that position. And it's more of just Marvin, even Reggie, not extremely vocal, but it's like, this is how a professional works. And, Marvin's famous quote, which there aren't many famous quotes, but, I get paid to practice and the games are for fun, or I don't have it exactly right, but it's something along those lines. And then I think Reggie's work ethic in that 2012 season was so critical for T.Y.'s rookie year. And now, the same thing can be said for Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell. And you saw the outcry of players on social media. I don't think this is huge, but I do look at it like, okay, no Rivers, no Costanzo, maybe no Houston. I mean, Houston does the pregame huddles on the field, those things that he breaks down T.Y. isn't crazy vocal, but I do think just having him back, there is some leadership element to it as well.
And then from an on-the-field perspective, if you watch the film, I mean, he still had separation, but then after the catch is where he got even more separation. I don't know what he does with his body, but he's able to, just have this slight hesitation that gets the defender off his feet for a split second. Next thing you know, he's got 7-8 yards after the catch. And I think that's an underrated part in his game that a lot of people don't look at because he's used to that, go deep, catch the ball, go into the end zone, and not the after the catch kind of guy.
Yeah, I think I've told the story before, but Andrew Luck, when Frank was hired, pretty much said to Frank, it might not look like the exact, point A to point B route running that you want, but just trust me, there's an innate feel to T.Y. And I thought Frank had a great quote last week, and I think I posted this in the story. T.Y. is as instinctive as a receiver as there is in the NFL. And I think that helps with Carson Wentz now outside of the pocket, things like that. And if you can tap into the deep ball, and T.Y. said he talked to Torrey Smith, and feels like, and Torrey Smith obviously played with Carson, had some great things to say about him. So nothing on the retirement front, nothing on the 1-year contract front, those sorts of things. We'll hopefully ask T.Y. that when he's made available, but I've got no regrets, honestly, with the 1-year $10 million. If you were, and I think, if you were going to make a substantial move, a wideout, and say bye to T.Y., that needed to happen week 1 of free agency. Once you waited, you had to bring him back.
Yeah. Are you surprised with the deal Sammy Watkins got? Because I think it was around $4 million.
Okay, I was going to say, was it? I thought it was 5, but yeah, I think it was right around that same level. A little bit. The problem with Watkins, man, is he hasn't been healthy. And I think there's some off the field stuff just where, he's admitted, mentally, things have been very taxing on him as well. I was a little bit. I mean, the whole wideout market, man. I mean, Juju got a lot less than I thought he'd get. I mean, Kenny Golladay got a healthy payday. The contract Josh Reynolds signed in Tennessee, he was a guy that I thought the Colts should have looked at as well. The wideout market in general, I think a lot of teams are having the Ballard philosophy of all these guys come out in the draft, just draft them nowadays. So I wanted to sneak that in there. Lastly, I think Pro Football Talk had this before we get into Twitter questions. T.Y., the incentives on that, 50 receptions, he gets $250K. 60 catches, another $250. 70 catches, another $250. If he gets 80 catches, then he makes the full $1 million. Same increments with yards. So $250,000 at 600 yards, another at 700 yards, another at 800, another at 900. So basically, if 80 catches and 900 yards for T.Y. Hilton this year, he'll make the full $10 million. If not, just $8 million. So I'm good with it, man. This team just hasn't been able to prove themselves without him in the lineup. And I think when that's the case, you bring him back and you groom those young guys.
Maybe that's another factor into the $10 million too. It's like, hey, you guys can't win without me there.
Seriously. I mean, the Katz brothers, I think I misspoke. It used to be Rosenhaus. The Katz brothers are his agent. I mean, they've got great leverage too. Like Chris, Chris Bauer, you want to go watch the game film of what you guys look like against Baltimore this year and T.Y. didn't play, like when he missed 6 games a year ago and, the only one was over Jacksonville, like that's just the reality of where this franchise has been out with that T.Y. So good that he's back. I think a lot of fans, I mean, there's some in the minority, it's like that's too much. But again, folks, I don't get too hung up on the price on the 1-year deals. And obviously Chris Ballard was hesitant, but Jim Irsay came in, and I didn't get the vibe listening to Hilton with McAfee that he's mad at Chris Ballard by any means. I should sneak that in there. I didn't get that vibe at all. This is just Chris, and I think guys get it to a degree. All right, man, should we do Twitter questions?
Let's go. Z-Palm asks, hey, KB, do you think Chris Ballard has constructed the team to take best player available, or are we locked into taking a offensive lineman or defensive lineman early?
Yeah, Z-Palm, I mean, obviously, if you're a betting man, you're going to take defensive end or left tackle. But really, you're pretty close to locked into it. But, man, if the right guy's there, I'm not passing him up. And really, I should focus on these positions. Running back, no chance. Defensive tackle, no chance. Linebacker, no chance. And I guess safety. But, I mean, if a wideout's there, if a tight end's there, if a cornerback is there, I'm taking them. And we'll see what those look like at 21. What's the medical red flag with Patrick Surtain going to do? Greg Newsome, great numbers, comes from Northwestern, but he barely touched the football and going and getting the football. In his days there at corner. Obviously, Kyle Pitts getting to 21 seems like beyond a long shot at this point. What happens if one of those wideouts, falls? So, yes, the most likely is obviously offensive tackle or edge rusher there. And I think a debate that we need to start having, Eddie, is like, we're getting to April, and it's like, what about your own options on this roster? I don't love that thought process, but that might become reality. I mean, you brought up Turay and Banogu earlier. Again, neither of those guys should be 3-down guys for you week 1, but, like, is it a Rochelle starts at end and then Turay comes off the edge? Now, of course, the Colts, and I think we are forgetting this, the Colts are missing 2 defensive end starters right now. Like, Al-Qadim Muhammad and Justin Houston, or Autry, I guess you could throw in there. Those were your starters last year at those spots. So you need 2 of them right now, or, some combination of a Rochelle and a Turay. And then at left tackle, how realistic is Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith potentially moving over there? I mean, if you feel that's the case, then I think you still got to go and draft a guard or whatever somewhat high. Maybe not super, super high, but those are all things to keep in mind.
John, considering the 49ers trade, we can now at least ballpark the amount of draft capital the Colts would have had to give up to get the 3rd quarterback off the board. Knowing that, if you could go back in time, would you be willing to give up more than what the 49ers did to move up to the 3rd overall pick, or would you rather roll the dice with the Colts trade package for Wentz?
Eddie, that was a big trade. I mean, it's a great question, John, and it obviously was the biggest argument. Well, it was probably the biggest worry of mine, I should start here, about what my thought process was. I think you filled in as producing in some of the shows when I've been hosting over the past few months. I've always been a fan of trading up. Now, seeing that package, it's like, wow. I was thinking, could you get to 7, right in that like Philly, Detroit range, and maybe the 3rd quarterback falls there. And now it's like, shit, these 4 quarterbacks might go 1, 2, 3, 4, which we've never had.
No, and it's just grown over the past couple of days too, especially after Zach Wilson's pro day.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with Justin Fields' pro day today. It's also fascinating because we heard Frank Reich, talk about like if Carson Wentz wasn't available, they would have likely gone down the trade path in the draft for a QB. What that would have looked like, of course, is just stuff that we'll never know. John, I get it. It's a massive, massive draft package, like huge, and the Colts draft package would have been bigger. But I also think the roster's in a good enough spot to support that rookie QB. And If you could then get maybe the left tackle of the future in the second round, I would have spent a little bit more to get an edge rusher in free agency. Obviously you're mortgaging several first-round picks moving forward, and I totally get that. But I'm just still of the belief if you've got that, whatever, the 49ers, it sounds like Mac Jones is their guy, which, is head-scratching. But, if Mac Jones helps them, whatever, get to that level, we won't even bat an eye at what that trade package looks like down the road. And obviously the Colts, or now the 49ers, I should say, they're in a decent cap situation with their QB to help build around him. Now, you've got to alter your building, or at least Chris Ballard would have to alter his building, I should say, if he were to do that sort of move. But I would say that this is, and I know I'm in the minority with this thinking. I mean, every Colt fan that saw that trade package, they were like, this is exactly why the Colts were never realistic to trade up, all that. Totally acknowledge that. It's also the biggest argument for trading up last year. Now, Buckner is Buckner and is a stud and deserves to be on the side of Lucas Oil and all of those things. But when you're at 13 overall to, 5 for Tua, 6 for Herbert is much different than 21 overall right now to whatever, 3 or 4 or wherever you got to get to draft that QB. So, I'm curious, Eddie, moving forward, is this going to become the norm, or is this very unique to the quarterback class here in 2021?
I think it's also amazing how teams reach for a quarterback, especially in those top 5 picks, rather than going with the need. Yeah, quarterback may be your need that year, but you could pass up on a guy like a Chase Young, who's an absolute stud, potential Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
To fill a quarterback hole that may not work out.
Right. I always think back to the Breeze draft, him going in the second round, and just if you have the patience or the belief that you can get that guy right now in the second round or whatever, and then you take, like you said, whoever, Chase Young, or is it Jamar Chase this year, or whatever, that high, man, it can help you out so much when you're not having to mortgage all of that. I think owners have become less patient, and I think owners also realize what quarterbacks can do for your franchise and for your fan base and your marketability and, the bottom line and all those things. So I think we're also getting to that point of just where the NFL, but, who knows? Next year is whatever. Are the QBs coming out next year going to have the same sort of pizzazz that this class does? Obviously, there's no Lawrence. At least it doesn't appear to be. We'll see.
RT Smooth, with the signing of Sam Tevy, I think that maybe, and fans may not like this, that now edge is the biggest roster need. To me, that means drafting an edge at 21 or later first round if we trade back. Have you looked into draftable edge talent, and what are names that you like if so? I'm liking Pay, obviously, but also very much, I don't even know how to say these two guys' last names. They look Hawaiian.
Yeah, Owe, let's go Owe and Irsay.
Okay, and later maybe Peyton Turner. Still keep Justin Houston to specialize and mentor. Don't think he's getting the market value he seeks, but like a lot of Colts free agents, it seems. All the Ballard hate for sitting on his hands, but the man gets no credit for being disciplined in his valuation of talent. Have a good day, KB, and thanks for talking to your fans.
You bet. Thanks for sending that in. And Eddie, welcome to the podcast questions, where sometimes people can send in large paragraphs. So we appreciate you gutting out through those questions. Let me be very clear, folks. Sam Tevy should not start. Julian Davenport should not start. These are simply depth signings. I wrote an article on the site earlier this week, and Chris Ballard is doing something he didn't do last year, which is try to get more experienced bodies. That's probably the way to kind of phrase it. These guys might even make the team. But if you throw Sam Tevy, Julian Davenport, and Will Holden into a hat and see what happens, and maybe you throw in a 6th-round pick in there, good. Create more competition. Last year, honestly, I thought it was pretty half-assed competition, and I think it cost you late in the season. As far as some of those edge rushers, Jason Owe, while, boy, the talent is just salivating, so raw, and...
Is that the kid from Florida?
He's the Penn State kid.
Okay.
And at times it just looks like, me trying to pass rush against my dad when I was, 7 years old in the backyard. Like I have no idea what I'm doing. I think Justin Houston is kept. I don't, Justin Houston is not terrible by any means. I'd like a little bit more pop there, but as far as the Ballard, give him credit, sure, but I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. Have you reached the point where you need to do a little extra to get over the hump when it comes to spending? All the Ballard hate for sitting on his hands, but the man gets no credit for being disciplined. Yeah, I mean, he's disciplined. I mean, we've acknowledged that. Jim Irsay has certainly acknowledged that publicly. That's great, but there comes a point in time where I think you've got to tweak your building. And that's where I think you get kind of the whole T.Y. Hilton one-year contract for that price. That's where you make an expectation. Is that the norm? Like, are you going to say every single free agent, here's a couple, $3-4 million more to tack on the deal? No, but when T.Y. Hilton's given you what he's given you over the past decade, he was healthy last season. It's been an underwhelming position group. I think he deserves that. So I think you can look at that very both sides of it. Yes, the Colts are in a really nice cap situation, which is great. But, if it leads to January exits that don't get to whatever, the Final Four or further than that, people are going to be frustrated, and rightfully so.
What do you think about Gregory Rousseau?
Yeah, I know his testing numbers weren't great yesterday. Both those Miami pass rushers, Jalen Phillips and Rousseau, I posted a mock draft look on the site earlier today, and I think both of them are mocked to the Colts twice. Boy, they're two just like Rousseau has the unreal 2019 season, then opts out. Long. Jalen Phillips, freak athlete. Rousseau opts out. Phillips slides in and has a huge season this year. He retired from football in college because of concussions in 2018. That's obviously a red flag. Mm-hmm. It's like these pass rushers, man, they don't make it easy for you. It's like, and obviously a totally different scenario, but when Montez Sweat came out, he had the heart issue, red flagged by a lot of teams, including the Colts. And, that was it for him. So, what about Kwity Paye out of Michigan? He seems to me to be the cleanest of those prospects when you're talking edge rush, but I still want to do a little bit more research out there and get all the pro day stuff in there. But it's a position that I think is very difficult to evaluate. And obviously Chris has struggled with that position, but I've also said I don't think it's that position I think is one of the more difficult positions to evaluate in today's NFL.
This question comes from JJ. After 4 years under Ballard, the Colts are 32-32 and haven't won their division. 4 years into the future with Reich and Ballard still in place, which is the more likely way to describe the team? A, Super Bowl champions. B, more character guys than any other team. C, most valuable players on the roster. He says he votes C. What do you say?
JJ is actually a she. Eddie, just to let you know, JJ has chimed in.
Did I accidentally say he?
Yeah.
Apologize, JJ.
Totally fine. JJ is asked terrific questions and is not afraid to attack Chris Ballard. Clearly, her optimism is not through the roof here with this answer. She's going with most valued players on the roster. Yeah, I can't go Super Bowl just yet. I need to see the left tackle and the edge. And, frankly, I need to see Carson Wentz.
I was about to say that too, yeah.
Wow, he kind of matters in that scenario. B and C, yeah, that's a little tongue-in-cheek, but I think those are likely. Eddie, maybe this is like a March Madness, kind of thought that's crept into my head. But you look at what's happened with Ohio State, or you look at what happened with Iowa or Illinois, and to me, it's about creating opportunities at the dartboard. Trying to just how many more chances can you get into January? Like, yes, you can have this kind of one-off, two-off team, and you hope that, but like Illinois and Iowa, generational teams for both of those programs, and they bow out really early because welcome to one-and-done life. Mm-hmm. It's freaky. Stuff can happen. I mean, Houston very easily could have lost to Rutgers. 2 rounds ago. And now here's Houston, and they're playing for a trip to go to the national championship game on Monday night.
UCLA.
Right. UCLA certainly down whatever they were to Michigan State. And as we record this, they're playing tonight, to take on Michigan and go to the Final Four. It's just weird stuff can happen. And obviously when you look at the Colts Super Bowl team in 2006, you ask anybody from that era, and it's not one of the 2 or 3 best teams from that era. But they got hot at the right time, and they provided themselves a chance in the dance. And they at least got one home game. Yeah, the first round game was at home. Obviously, they got back at home for the AFC title game. But those are the things I think you got to get into. It's like winning your division, creating some home field in the playoffs, trying to set yourself up in more favorable situations to where it's not at Houston and then a trip to Arrowhead like it was a couple years ago, or at Buffalo, and then if you won in Buffalo, I think you would have gone to Arrowhead again. So try to get yourself again in a few more favorable situations. I think that's really key, JJ.
John, hey Kevin. Ballard is making a huge number of depth signings to the offensive line. Right now, a reserve unit consists of Pinter, Holden, Hunt, Tevy, and Davenport. I like the idea of competition for the roster, but this feels like more than an overreaction to a lack of depth this season, or last season. Do you think this is foreshadowing Ballard passing on tackle in the first round in favor of a second round or maybe even a day 3 tackle? This tackle class is very deep, and our left side is already forfeited by Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, John, first, I do want to note that Joey Hunt signing. I know it kind of got lost in the shuffle. Hunt got signed earlier this week. I wrote a free agency watch on him a few months ago and pretty much mentioned if you believe Quentin Nelson can play left tackle, remember, folks, it was Joey Hunt and not Danny Pinter that got in against the Raiders to play left guard when Nelson moved over to left tackle. So I'm not reading a ton into it, but I just think we all need to note that. Like Joey Hunt was the first man off the bench, if you will, to play left guard when Nelson slid over to left tackle. Now, to your question, in no way can you wait till day 3 to draft. No, the Colts have waited too long in the past couple of drafts to draft a tackle. Maybe even not at all. I mean, Jackson Barton in the 7th round is the only tackle they've drafted the last 2 cycles. I mean, to your point, John, I think it's a reaction to what happened last year, and it should be a reaction. And I think a lot of it, too, is also a reaction to what happened in the Super Bowl with what Kansas City had and their offensive line situation. So I'm fine with Chris handing out the type of contract. I mean, Pinter, Holden, Hunt, Tevy, Davenport. I'd be willing to guess you've got 60, 70 starts among that quintet. A lot of them played snaps in the NFL last year, meaningful snaps in the NFL last year. You couldn't say that about the depth group entering training camp last year. So I'm totally fine with what Chris Ballard has done. I also feel like, as much as I am such a fan of left tackle in the draft, first or second round, that's the path to find the future there, all the benefits that come with a rookie contract at left tackle who's playing good football for you. Man, Eddie, the closer that we get to the draft, I'm starting to think, is Quentin Nelson or Braden Smith really in play at left tackle? But if that's the case, I don't look at Sam Tevy or Will Holden or Julian Davenport and say that's your right tackle from day 1.
Well, what if they move Pinter to right tackle? Where did he play?
He did play there. He did play there at Ball State. He was a tight end for 2 years at Ball State, and there was a right tackle for 2 years. And people have asked me that, so it's a fair question that you bring up. They've always said interior with him. I think his body type's a little bit more in the interior. I know he's got some basketball background, but I think he's 6'4", 300. That's kind of more in the interior. So I hear people out on that, but they've been pretty steadfast. Like, they want that guy in the middle of their line. So, John, it's a fair question, but, man, if they wait till day 3 for a tackle, that's a big mistake.
Ghost Visible. If the Colts draft a wide receiver in either day 1 or day 2, could that mean Campbell's role would be limited or possibly cut? Thanks, Kevin.
Boy, I'd be shocked. I think better chance Tiger Woods plays in the Masters next week than Paris Campbell gets cut. And you guys know I want Tiger to somehow resurrect himself. Can we give him a golf cart for 4 days?
What's the update on him, by the way?
I don't think we got much, unfortunately. Well, I don't know, maybe fortunately, but I know he's back in Florida. That's about it. So, I mean, he's obviously not playing golf for quite some time. But, go again, Paris Campbell's not getting cut. Let me make that very, very clear. But, yeah, any wideout drafted day 1 or day 2 would limit, him, potentially Pascal. I can't see them drafting a wideout that early. I mean, we're talking first or second round. I will say this, Eddie. Does the fact that Chris Ballard wasn't willing to offer T.Y. Hilton the contract that Jim Irsay was willing to offer, does that mean in Ballard's eyes T.Y. should have a lighter role?
That's a good question. Or does he just devalue the position too? That's another thing.
Fair, very fair. Does Frank Reich, creep into that opinion? How much of this is Jim Irsay saying, boys, it's 1 year. Let's just give him a couple extra million, and even if you scale back his role, I'm fine with having him on the roster at that value. It's interesting to think about. Of course, we won't get the answer on that until potential. I mean, if they turn around and draft a receiver in the second round, then it's like, oh, wow.
Do you think T.Y. would take a contract if they told him up front, hey, your role will be limited, considering the money left on the table from Baltimore?
Another good point. Yeah, I can't see T.Y. loving that. I mean, I know he's a big fan of Indy, and I think there was some confusion on T.Y.'s comments about him turning down more money from Baltimore. Did you kind of hear that? He said, I turned down, I believe it was, if I would have signed with Baltimore, I would have gotten more money the day I signed than my entire contract with the Colts. I think he's just referencing the 1 year deal with the Colts. So basically, Baltimore, I think it was reported 3 years, $16 million. The Colts 1 year, $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, how I look at it is the guarantees from Baltimore would have been $12 million of that $16 million, or maybe it just would have been $11 million, something like that. So, yeah, I still think they view T.Y. relatively highly, but that Ballard thought just kind of been sitting in my brain.
Gatto asks, with T.Y. re-signed, the biggest needs are edge and left tackle, which I'm assuming will be addressed throughout the draft. In this draft, what do we dedicate our first pick to? I've heard some pretty good rushes may fall, and while I hear the offensive lineman class is deep, I also hear there are a few day 1 starters. So which do the Colts need to prioritize, in your opinion?
Gatto, it all depends on what that board, is just going to look like. You hate to cop out and go there, but, what happens is if Rashawn Slater's there at 14 or 15, do you trade up? He seems to be a guy that would check a lot of Colts boxes to me, but that might be a little bit, too rich just from you only have 6 draft picks. But I can really flip a coin here, and I'm surprised I've come around on that. But the more I've looked in that edge rush, and I just think, man, it goes back to that question I had earlier, Eddie, of internally, would you feel better at left tackle? Would you feel better if you had Quint Nelson at left tackle and Danny Pinter at left guard, or if you had Isaac Rochelle and Kamoko Ture as your starting edge rushers?
I'm going with Nelson and Pinter over the edge rushers for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I would disagree with that. So when you put it in that light, which I know that's not the exact light, but that's kind of where we're at right now. If you look at a depth chart, then maybe you would say edge rusher under that front. So the whole few day 1 starters, I don't know. I feel like there's some day 1 starters out of this group. I mean, flat out, Eddie. Again, the Colts need two starters. 21, 54. You trade back, whatever. You need 2 guys that are going to impact at some pretty important spots.
This is from Chav. Do players or agents reach out to teams often? I know GMs scout and reach out for players they want, but do players do the same? For example, what if Anthony Walker thought he'd be a great fit for the Browns, but he wasn't on Andrew Berry's radar? Does this happen, and how common do you think it is?
Oh, yeah. I think it's very common, without a doubt. Now, I don't know if agents are directly talking to the GMs, but they're talking to people within that pro personnel department of, hey, have you seen my guy lately? Because then that third in line at the Colts, then he's like, oh, wow, I forgot about this guy. Here's some new tape on him or whatever. He was hurt. Now he's working out, this and that. So, yeah, I mean, that happens constantly. You're pitching your client to that team. Now it's probably an indicator if your client sucks or isn't a frontline guy. That was obviously a little bit too harsh there, but you know what I'm getting at. Certainly NFL personnel departments, they know, but yeah, you're always trying to, have a little pitch in there.
All right, this name reminds me of a commercial that airs on the Fan. Big Buck Hunter.
Big Buck Hunter?
You know what? Have you heard that
Yeah,
one? We just hunt Big Buck.
It sounds like a Saturday morning outdoors commercial,
Yeah.
leading into whatever, Soccer Saturday.
Or Indiana Outdoors.
Yeah. Indiana Outdoors.
This is from Big Buck Hunter. If the Colts are committed to moving Nelson to left tackle, how does that impact your first-round draft priority? Does it have to be edge first, then starting line of Nelson, Pinter, Kelly, Glowinski, Smith?
Yeah, I would think it'd be edge. Now, again, I would like another offensive lineman somewhat early for insurance purposes. But, yeah, I would probably go with edge rusher there.
I think that this idea just struck me. There's usually always that one player that falls in the draft, and it's usually in that late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
So the Colts could be in a great spot there if there's that one player that does fall.
Yeah, think about Jordan Love last year. I think a lot of people thought he'd go earlier. All of a sudden, he's on the board. Green Bay's like, oh, my gosh, we just flat out have to take him. So, and this is why we freaking love the draft, just because you never know. And with all these QBs going early, and seemingly some wideouts, does that push down more defensive talent for the Colts? How does that impact things as well?
This is from Chris. He says, you and Chris have been doing a damn good job at keeping the offseason enjoyable.
Thank you for that, Chris. Appreciate that. And Eddie stepping in very, very nicely today.
How do you think the fans in City would respond if Wentz comes in and snaps the opening week losing streak? I bet they go nuts. Also, Chris jinxed the T.Y. signing during the last pod.
Oh, boy. This sounds like my brother-in-law.
He's got a theme for jinxing things, let me tell you.
Believing in jinxes. Hell, I think if you win opening week, we go a little parade around the circle. Why not? It's beautiful weather in September. You win week 1, we might need to hang a banner inside of Lucas Oil for that. It's been so long. It's I'll say this, Eddie. Week 1, Carson Wentz has a big day, and you've got that MVP Carson Wentz ticket. You might need to throw that up on Prop Swap. You guys heard him earlier. Prop Swap, that's who's sponsoring Kevin's Corner, and they've got some very, very enticing MVP. Never too early. I've looked at some baseball MVP props they've got up on the site. Also some NFL ones up there as well. So if you guys haven't already, Eddie and I were talking about that before the show. Prop Swap.
How does that work?
So basically, in simplest terms, it's eBay for prop bets. So basically, you have bet on, the Colts and the Saints and the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. You do that at the start of the year. As the year goes on and you feel like it's a great ticket to sell, you put it up on their site. You can sell it, make some money back. You want to hold on to it till the playoffs? Hold on to it till the playoffs. You want to ride it out through the Super Bowl? You can ride it out as well. But I think it's just some opportunity to hedge in a little bit of a safer, more enticing manner. And you got to remember, the odds are obviously the odds you're getting at the start of the season. Like right now on their site, they've got these props for Houston winning it all for the national title. They got them for 30-1 at the start of the year. Now they're 5-1 to win it all, and that's obviously a great ticket. So Chris, if you believe in this, that might be a route to go down. Yeah, if Carson Wentz, they're going to be happy. Of course, Colts fans are going to be happy. Jim Irsay is going to be happy. No one is more pissed off about that week 1 losing streak than Jim Irsay. It's, Eddie, where were you in 2013, Eddie?
Honestly, I cannot remember. I was a freshman in high school. Puts perspective how young I am.
Say no more. Think about that. Ryan Kelly was 3 years away from being a Colt. The last time the Colts won as a season opener. And Ryan Kelly's now on his second contract as the highest paid center. 3 years away from being a Colt.
Where were you in 2013?
Shit, that's a good question. I was living in a Broad Ripple house that it was a miracle that we survived that house. And, boy, I was paying probably, they should have paid us to live in that house, to be honest with you. Yeah, Corn Washington, Joe Ardiolo, and Brian Shelbourne, just a terrific crew. And, Yeah, it was it was a long time ago. Terrell Pryor, the opposing quarterback.
Oh,
last
my.
time the Colts.
All right.
Season opener.
So Tanner brings up a name that we haven't discussed so far. Hey, Kev, thank you for being the go-to for my Colts content. With Wentz working with Michael Pittman Jr. and Desmond Patman, could you see, one, Michael getting more opportunities for 50-50 balls down the field? Two, Patman making a serious push for some snaps in the regular season? He feels like that they're creating chemistry early, and it has to be a plus for all three.
Yeah, these are some good thoughts, good questions here, Tanner. I think definitely with Michael Pittman. We just never saw that to the extent. I know Chris Presley was banging that pretty hard. You go back, you watch, I think it's the Arizona State game, Colorado game with Pittman. There are some Moss-like moments from, honestly, he did it a little bit. Not truly, but he did it to Julian Blackmon against Utah on one play. Desmond Patman, my question is just, where does he get playing time? If healthy, the group, obviously Pittman, obviously Hilton, obviously Campbell, and Pascal. And Pascal just makes you feel good at night that you can trust him and he's going out there. So I just think you're still very raw with a guy like Patman. I still think he needs some more development. When he made his stuff happen last year, it was a lot of just kind of second-team stuff. And so now, you throw Patman into the category with Jacob Eason, of a guy that's like, let's see this dude in the preseason. See him get some more reps, going against a little bit more high-level players, this and that. But you can't teach that frame, and that's why they drafted him. You look at his production in college, he shouldn't have been drafted where he was drafted. But you go 6'4" and 225 and run for whatever, and yeah.
Sounds like Demarcus Robinson to me.
Ooh. He re-signed to the Chiefs?
Yep. It was like a 1-year deal, I believe.
Yeah, saw that. He was a name I kind of had on the radar.
This is from Alec. What position in the draft do you think is most likely to be picked based on best available outside of tackle or corner? And I'm going to add edge rush because we've talked about that a lot.
Okay. Well, I think Alec would be based off the most draft depth. If you're going to go best player available, maybe wideout, dude. And I know that's not... wideout in round 1 would certainly raise some eyebrows, but I would think that would be your best available.
I feel like the wide receiver class is a little shorter than in years past, too. Like the last couple have been bigger receivers, but you look at Tony from Florida, Rondale Moore from Purdue, two guys that are projected in that range where the Colts pick.
Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, not huge guys. So, yeah, that's a really good point as well. A little bit different flavor.
Yep. And you got to wonder where Chris values all those. Ballard.
Yeah. It's a little bit similar skill sets to Campbell. So that's something to keep an eye on.
From Matt, we don't spend money in free agency. Ballard said that he wants to build through the draft. Do you think next year will be a tipping point for us to pay above market for key players?
Oh, Matt, haven't we had this question every year? It's like, this is the year. Right here, right now, it's going to be different. It's never different. I'll say this, Eddie, if you fall short again in the division, you fall short in January, whether that's, I don't know. I think getting the AFC title game is probably where it's like, all right, you feel good about the season you just had. If you don't alter your plan, that's just stubborn or stupid, to be honest with you. So, right here, right now, Matt, I'm not going to take that bet. Maybe I'll bet your money on it, but I'm not betting mine on it. But, you fall short in the division or in January, I think you have to. You have to. How do you not? It's year 6.
I think one thing we have to remember is when Chris Ballard was on with Dan Dockich, he said the window is just now opening.
Correct. Yeah, correct. So, do you spend in that window? Obviously, Carson Wentz's play, I think, impacts a little bit of that as well.
Hi, fellas. This is from Scotty. With the exception of Wentz, Ballard has been very quiet in free agency in terms of signing starters. Should the Colts fans be concerned that this team is worse now than at the end of last year, or should we trust Ballard's plan?
Oh, without a doubt, they're a worse football team right now. Now, you still have a month to build, and obviously if those draft picks come in and really impact from day one, you can help some things. But, I think you just got to take it, and I was talking to Rick Venturi about this, and he agrees wholeheartedly with this thought as well. If you look at the 5 positions of need coming in the offseason? Let's start at quarterback. Kind of up in the air. Carson Wentz, I think, kind of high ceiling, different things certainly than what Phillip does. But you just don't, is he going to be the same? Is he going to give you the same sort of production that Phillip gave you last year? Who knows? I think if you were to say right now, Carson Wentz will achieve the same level of quarterback production as Phillip Rivers did last year, I think most fans will sign up for that.
And then you have to account for the mobility of Wentz too, so there's some added value.
And that is, and he should bring more there. Now, does that take? Now, does he? Do you have to take away a little bit of like the mental acumen? Rivers, very, very good at that. So that's where you're at quarterback. Wide out. If Paris Campbell's healthy, that should be a better position group. I'll 100% say that. Left tackle, clearly worse. I don't know how you get better at left tackle, to be honest with you. Defensive end, worse. Corner, you would hope that group takes a jump just because the Rock Yassines and the Marvell Tells and the Isaiah Rodgers. Again, it's a hope, though. So if you look at those 5 positions, wide out, as long as Campbell's healthy, it should be a better group. Corner, it's about time that group took a step forward with some of the young draft capital there. Quarterback, probably a coin flip. I don't know. And left tackle and DN right now, you are worse. So it's a lot of running it back, Scotty. I've mentioned kind of the tougher schedule. I think what you're banking on is some of your young guys on your own roster to emerge. And that's at corner. Right now it's a D end, like you've referenced before. Obviously it's Campbell staying healthy. Left tackle, who knows? And then at quarterback, can you tap into the higher ceiling? The floor is a little bit lower, but can you tap into the higher ceiling? And certainly a lot of that falls on Frank Reich.
Colton says, would you rather start your franchise with Willis, Okereke, Buckner, Nelson, Hides, and Campbell, or Blackman, Leonard, Stewart, Smith, Taylor, Pittman?
Oh, all right. Throw those at me one more time. So he's going with what, 5 or 6 names, kind of an either or?
Yes. So
okay.
Your first one, Kari Willis,
okay,
Bobby Okereke, DeForest Buckner, Quentin Nelson, Nyheim Hines, Paris Campbell.
Boy, that's okay. All right, second one.
Julian Blackman, Darius Leonard, Grover Stewart, Smith, Taylor, Pittman.
Man, that's a good one. So my first thought was take the first group because they've got Nelson and Buckner.
Mm-hmm.
But
then you've got Campbell with the injuries.
I know, and it's like, Hines isn't even a starter. Willis and Okereke, they're good players, but like their positions aren't. Man, the more I think about it, that second group kind of, Braden Smith, obviously great tackle. Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman. Boy, that's a nice duo right there. Darius Leonard speaks for himself. Man, that's a good one, Colton.
I'm taking roster 2 to start.
Are you?
Yeah.
I think I like that second group. I do, but man, passing on Buckner and Nelson would be hard to sleep at night.
Yeah, it would. Also, when you look at them, who's got a bigger leader out of the group? You've got Darius Leonard
for sure.
In group 2, so there's your leader.
Yeah, you got an alpha right there. That's for damn sure. Although DeForest Buckner, I think, can lead. He might not be as vocal, but I'll go with that second group, and that's shocking to me.
Logan. Hey, Kevin, I love the pod.
Thanks, Logan.
Everyone keeps thinking or taking about having to get dynamic quarterbacks. But after what we've seen from the last 10 years, it seems that the dominant trench play is what wins, i.e. Broncos, Seahawks, Patriots, Bucks, etc. I get having to get a great quarterback, but Chris Ballard's comment about winning up front is so true. Even average quarterbacks have gotten to a Super Bowl. Jimmy G, Jared Goff, Nick Foles, Joe Flacco, etc. What are your thoughts?
Logan, I would say where I would push back against that thought is just sustaining that success. Flash in the pan with those teams, sure. But, Eddie, let's look at those 4 quarterbacks. Jimmy G, time's ticking in San Francisco. Jared Goff, not with the Rams. Nick Foles now on his second team since leaving the Eagles. And Joe Flacco, I don't even know where he is. What, did he just sign with Philly?
Yes.
I mean, so that's what I'm getting at, Logan, is if you are, again, flash in the pan stuff, it can happen. But if you want to try and sustain it over a 5 to 10 year period, you need more. The one-night stands happen in the Super Bowl, folks. And I'm not just talking about fans partying after the games. I'm talking about, fluky quarterback can get on a run. But you do it twice, you do it 3 times. No, there's no fluke in that. There's no fake in that.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Jimmy G, Jared Goff, Nick Foles, Flacco, all those guys were having career years at that time when they got to the Super Bowl.
That's a good point as well. And obviously, Foles just got hot at the right time. Carson did so much to get them there. But, again, Logan, to me, it's how are you trying to set yourself up for the multiple darts at the dartboard? That's what I keep on coming back to. That's where you want to get to.
All right, 2 questions left. Creighton. Hey, so when you look at all of Chris Ballard's first 4 draft classes, even with his worst one being in 2017, we still got Anthony Walker, Marlon Mack, and Grover Stewart. And not to mention Malik Hooker, who I would at least consider a solid starter, didn't quite turn out to what we wanted him to be. In the 3 drafts since then, he has managed to get 3 impactful players in each draft. I don't really see how we can fault with him because no human being is going to hit on every single pick. Is it safe to say that there are 4 GMs we can almost guarantee he's going to be here for the next 5 years based off of how he's doing if he continues this trend on drafting extremely well even in the later rounds?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you draft extremely well, I don't see why, you would think that's going to lead to some more tangible results on the field. I mean, that's how you build. That's why I've been, such a big believer in the foundation that Chris Ballard has laid out here, which is much different than the previous era at this point. But, having said that, Creighton, at some point, the January results do supersede some stuff. And really, I would say the fault is just maybe the impactful positions, like D-end and corner mean a little bit more than maybe linebacker and, safety or something else. So I think that's where you have some fault. And I know full well drafting is extremely difficult. So what Chris Ballard has done is pretty darn good. I don't know if I'd call 2019 super impact yet. I mean, Okereke and Willis, but I mean, Rocky Sean and Paris Campbell, we can't call them, impactful guys just yet. But yeah, I would just say a little bit of January results coupled with, obviously, like you said, the great success in future drafts.
The final question comes from Wake Spike. Hey guys, hypothetically, if Wentz is the worst decision since Trent Richardson,
whoa.
That would
wait. Start that over. I just heard Trent. It's been a while since I've heard Uncle Trent's name, so start that over.
He says, hey guys, hypothetically, if Wentz is the worst decision since Trent Richardson,
oh my gosh,
that would have to be pretty low.
Jeez.
Do you see a scenario where Reich is fired due to his over attachment to broken players and Ballard stays in as GM? Or will both be gone? You guys rock.
Well, thank you for the "you guys rock" comment because I don't think anyone else wanted to hear the rest of that question. Boy, that's quite the that's quite the question to end things on here, Eddie. I guess going along with your hypothetical, I would say both would be fired. I think both are kind of tied at the hip right now. I know that's kind of like a sexy, phrase to use with a lot of this stuff, but yeah, I would say, gosh, I don't think Carson Wentz is going to be that bad, but man, that's an uplifter to end the podcast, isn't it, Eddie?
Oh yeah. Do you think Easton's the backup?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think it should be, and I actually think they're going with that, which selfishly I think it's a good move for them. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out the rest of the offseason. So I enjoyed the pod, man. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for stepping in. That's Eddie Garrison, everybody. For the Eddie, plug your Twitter
at Eddie Garrison _ Eddie EDDIE Garrison GARRISON.
So Eddie helps out. Just a kind of jack of all trades, producing Soccer Saturday,
Pacers Weekly,
the
main shows on the Fan,
doing a little bit of everything for
Indiana
us.
Sports Talk.
Yeah, busy weekend man is Eddie Garrison frequently, and a big help today. Eddie, as we record this, there are 6 teams remaining in March Madness. Let's give our picks and know full well that we could look like idiots very, very quickly. I'll let you go first. Give me a championship game and the winner of that championship game.
Well, I'm going to be very chalk in mine. Gonzaga, Baylor. I just don't think anyone's playing to the level of the Baylor Bears right now, and I'm taking Baylor to win.
Wow. Eddie Garrison, folks.
Defense wins championships, and I will stick by that. The way they're defending, they're hard to beat.
I'll tell you what, I watched them last night, man. They got some grown men on that team. They got some dudes. I'm like, could those dudes play on Sunday?
Yeah.
I'm like, those guys look like they can play in the NFL.
Yeah, Vital or whatever.
Yeah,
he looks
Vital,
like
and then that guard, 45. Holy yeah, that guy is.
Is it just me, or does Davion Mitchell literally
Mitchell, that's him.
look like Mitchell with the Jazz? Like same
Oh,
number,
yeah.
same frame,
Yeah, that's
same
a good point.
explosive
Yeah.
capability.
I could see that. They don't like look alike in the face by any means, but yeah, they do kind of carry themselves. Their mannerisms are kind of similar and whatnot. And I'll say this though, your Baylor Bears are going to have a rock fight on Saturday night because Kelvin Sampson, he can cheat, but that man can coach much more than he can cheat.
And those guys play, but they didn't shoot well.
They don't shoot well, but they just throw it up and they say, hopefully it hits the rim, and then we'll go find it. And we'll throw it up there again. If we miss it, we'll go find it again.
You just got to hope the first half of the Baylor Bears from their game against, who did they play before?
Oh, Nova.
Yeah, you got to hope that you get that half of Baylor and not the first half against Arkansas.
I will take the Zags over the Bears in what I hope is a great championship game. I will say this to your point, Eddie. We forget how good Baylor was this season, and then the COVID pause happened, and now it looks like they're getting back to that level. So, we all kind of thought this. Illinois emerged late in the season, I think, as the new second team, but Baylor has certainly been on that level. And, selfishly, man, for our city, I just hope everything goes off without a glitch of this next, we're less than a week. Yeah, because the national title game will be Monday night. So
I just hope Oregon State's play-by-play guys all right. Did you hear about that?
No.
He was walking downtown by the canal and was attacked.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow. We don't need that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, jeez, that's awful. What anymore? Obviously super late at night.
Yeah, it was after their win to get to the Elite Eight.
Oh, okay. So I feel like we would have heard if it was really bad.
Yeah, I don't know how bad it was, but I just saw the story on Monday, I think, yesterday.
Yeah.
At the time of recording Tuesday, but
right.
I think I saw that he got attacked over the weekend. I was like,
oh, jeez.
I was like, not a great message to send, did he? Come on.
No, come on now. Well, hopefully, besides that, things will go off without a hitch over the next week or so. He's Eddie Garrison. I'm Kevin Bowen. Appreciate you all tuning into this edition of Kevin's Corner. We'll be back next week with another pod. Later.